high expenses, low expenses, your taxes went up and down just like that.
I'd love to know what's going on right now.
Yes, I would too. I would want to go back there to see, though. I don't even want to look at the place.
Well, if no new families with kids are moving in, I'm talking over a 10-year period, let's say, the people that are there can't sell, which means they're getting older, their kids are growing up, there might not be very many kids left, so they're shutting down schools, and I doubt it, but the taxes could go down, but that's too common sense.
I got a letter, a Christmas card from Mary Terillian. Now Sid was one of our carpool boys.
TWA fella.
I remember him, sure.
All right, Sid died this fall. And she was telling him she's looking for a condo. She lives on 40 Jerusalem Avenue right there where she's always lived.
She's still there?
Yeah, she's still there. She's looking for a condo now, condominium. They had 4 kids. They all live within 5 miles of where. So I mean, they've got their family there. They don't want to move, and they probably bought back far enough back that they didn't have to pay this high price for the house.
But they still got to pay those taxes.
Yeah, I know it. If
so
everything else it doesn't have, if you don't have very much of anything else, you can afford to pay it.
We were so lucky to get out of there exactly when we did. It couldn't have been better.
No, another year and a half, 2 years, it would wipe us out.
The taxes went to the moon after you moved out.
They didn't, not only taxes, they brought in a sewer system that we were going to have to pay for, and
Yeah.
and the price of the Long Island Railroad, which you were dependent on, went sky
Used to
high.
pay $13 a week. Now it's over $100 a month. This is commutation fees.
Well, the subways were 15 cents. Now they're $1 or whatever. You pay 15 cents. I remember the little tokens.
Sure. I remember when it was a nickel.
I wonder what that Staten Island ferry is now.
Quarter, I think.
I think it has, no, I think I think it's still 5 cents because there's some kind of a deal. Somebody made a grant or something and the taxes have to remain the same. I mean, the fares have to remain the
Is
same.
that one?
So the Staten Island ferry still has its load of passengers. It was on a TV news flash or something here, not too far back, showed the new paint job on the ferry.
So basically, the city of New York is subsidizing the Staten Island ferry.
It always has. It's never made money.
Not at a nickel apiece, it won't.
Well, you see, when we moved there, we had the famous tour of Long Island in New York for people. You took the 3rd Avenue L down to the tip of the island. You took the 5-cent ferry across the lower bay. And if you worked it right, you could stay on and not have to pay the 5 cents back. And then you get on, when you got back to New York, you get on another subway for 5 cents and rode back uptown.
And you'd always ride around the Statue of Liberty on the way.
Yeah.
That's fun. This is just, let's do this again sometime.
Okay.
We got us to New York.
This. Where'd you go?
Which way?
I just want to get something out of this drawer. Okay.
Earl, get your feet up, kind of.
I got it up.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, I'll go a little faster. All right, I got my wheels up.
8th, 1994. Now, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about when you moved to California.
Yeah. All right, in 1938, myself and 10 other employees attended a training school to prepare us for better jobs as reservations agents, travel agents, ticketing agents at the airport and things like that. And we went 2 nights a week from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock for 9 months on our own time and at our own expense.
And what year was this?
1938.
Okay.
And then along toward the end of 1938, 2 jobs opened up. One in New York and one in Los Angeles in the reservations department. Charlie Yates got the one in New York and I got the one in Los Angeles, which incidentally is the airport terminal was where we had our reservations office. We were not downtown in the sales office. We were out at the airport. I worked out there, and my first assignment out there was on the graveyard shifts, and I worked from 1 a.m. I worked from 1 p.m. to about 11 a.m. And then when somebody else came in and took one of the jobs, I got promoted and I got to work the other one from 5 till 1. It was 5 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
That's when Mom used to take me at the airport at 4 o'clock, wearing a fur coat in the summertime. And come on and pick me up at 1 o'clock. And she'd already have her swimming suit on. I had put mine on, not wanting to go to work. And she had our sandwiches and things made for a lunch, and we drove out to the ocean and went standing at the beach.
It must have been fun.
And it was fun because I would get home, I get finished at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's plenty of daylight until us to go out and play there. Then I got transferred to Long Beach, California to open up the ticket office there. And that was in the beginning of 1940.
Where does your father fit in all this?
My father rode with us in the car when we transferred through to California. And then he came back home on the train, and on the way he stopped at Albuquerque to visit some people that he had known when we lived there. And then I was at Long Beach for a while, and he died in May of 1940. And I got us positive passes in those days, for Mom and I to go back to the funeral. Then there was an opening came up in San Francisco, chief ticket agent.
Before you go to San Francisco, tell me again, what did your father die from?
He had an asthmatic heart.
So this was like a heart attack?
No, this is more like, yes, a heart attack, but not, yeah. Sort of a heart attack. Yes. He was a heavy smoker.
And that was probably part of it?
And that was probably a whole lot of what it was.
So how old was he when he died?
It's 59
That's pretty young.
when he died, yes, it was. He and my mother were married for 20 some odd years, and then my mother was a widow. She was a widow for 32 years before she died. So at San Francisco, there's opportunity for a ticket agent, chief ticket agent's job. So we took it, and I reported for work in the early fall. And we drove through, we packed our things in a Chevrolet with the rumble seat and everything. And we drove through to San Francisco, and that's where we had to find an apartment to live in, and one that we could afford. And we finally did, and it had a very famous address known as 52 Upper Terrace. Lower Terrace is our address.
That's the one that
And
Brian and I went to.
the people that lived at 56 Upper Terrace, he came in the office one day it was Harry Bridges, the union leader. He came in the office one day to pay for his ticket to Pittsburgh. And kidding with him, I said, I ought to hate you. He looked at me kind of funny like. And I said, I live at 56 Lower Terrace. And he thought for a minute, and then he burst out laughing, because his address was 56 Upper Terrace. And all of his union men, when they get tight or something, they wanted to go talk to Harry. All I could remember was Terrace 56. And so we were very friends for many months. He would come in and buy his tickets from me, and we had a lot of conversation going on. Then the fellow that normally had the chief reservations and ticketing agent's job had been sent off to war, sent off to military. It was called up. They called up all the reserves in a certain category, and so he was called up, and that's why the job was open. Well, while we were going on vacation in July, we came back to the Midwest. I dropped by the office, and the general transportation manager told me that my job in San Francisco was being given back to the fellow that was off on military service, and he says, we're not sure just exactly what, but I'm going to assign you to California, to Los Angeles office, on special assignment to Kansas City. And so that's what happened. I moved from, we moved from San Francisco back to Los Angeles. And I came back to Kansas City and worked out of Kansas City for about 2 months or so, till I finished the assignment they gave me. And then they transferred me then legally or directly to the reservations office in Kansas City. At that time, that office handled all the reservations for the whole airline.
What year was it?
And this was 1941.
Okay.
1941. As we drove back from Kansas, Mom and Grandma Jenkins drove that old 10-year-old Chevrolet back from Los Angeles to Kansas City. I had, before that, a month before that, I had flown on back to Kansas City to go to work, where my job was. So anyway, Mom and her mother drove through, and they had one flat tire and a lot of prayer besides. And she arrived in Kansas City on December the 3rd.
Just before Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor was on Sunday on that, and then I was in Kansas City for all the years till we moved to New York. And we lived in an apartment for a little over a year. Then we moved to a house that we bought out of Levittown. And we lived there until we retired.
Now you bought the house from a GI that had bought it.
I bought the house.
That was
in
51.
In Levittown. His house, it was a 1949 model. This was the spring of 1951. And I bought it from a GI who had a GI loan on it. He came to California or something. And we lived there then, from then until we moved out here to Albuquerque in August of '71.
There's a lot of things during the years. Go ahead.
During these things, I worked in the Burbank Reservations office, the Long Beach Reservations office, ticket office, the Los Angeles Reservations office, the Burbank Reservations office, all in that period was out in California. All the work in Kansas City was mostly the headquarters for the company. We did everything there. And
When you did all this flying around the world in around 49, 50, 51,
49.
you, of course, you took some movies, which I remember, of India, the races, and
We have those someplace, I don't know where they are now.
you were gone for several months at a
I was
time.
gone in January of '49. I was gone in January, February, March, and April. And I left in April and went to Europe. And all of our offices over there at Cairo and on into Arabia and on into Bombay and all through Europe. And I went over the first part of April, middle of April. I went from New York over there. And I didn't get back home until August.
Oh,
And Mom was in Kansas City trying to put the house on the market for sale. And the like.
when you were in Europe, did you still see a lot of damage from the war?
Very little. Some of the places I didn't. I saw one of the worst places was London.
Mm-hmm. How much had they got it fixed up, or was it still kind of blown apart?
Some of it was pretty well damaged. But what they did, the English, when the war was over, like, and they started rebuilding, they rebuilt housing. The Germans rebuilt industry.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a need for the product that they, so they really did real well.
The Germans.
The Germans, as far as that type of thing was concerned.
They did the industry first, whereas the English did the housing first.
Housing, the English put up with anything to sleep in, live in, and started their industry going. Pretty smart. And I came back here in the fall of, in October of '49. We got the house, so Mom did. I didn't have anything to do with that. Sold the house and we left for New York. Loaded all you kids up in our things and left for New York. And over 2 or 3 days of traveling through there, and like, we finally got to Wilma and Tom's house out in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And while Mom and I were in New York looking for a place to live, Roger and Larry were in Media, Pennsylvania with Aunt Margaret, Aunt Wilma, and Uncle Tom. And actually, Roger, you attended school for a few weeks at the Timmy's schoolhouse. And then we finally all ended up, and we got to our apartment, got our furniture and everything. And we're in good enough shape that we offered the turkey to all of the Funkhausers and Ectons and Andersons and like for Thanksgiving, because we had received a great big 20-odd pound turkey for Thanksgiving present from a vendor. And we loaded it. We had a electric oven. It cooked all night the night before. We put it in the trunk of the car and wrapped it up in blankets and everything, and drove down to Philadelphia to Alma's and Bob's place for Thanksgiving. And there's only one thing about it. It was the blanket, the turkey was covered up so good with insulation and blankets and like that the turkey kept on cooking. So they got ready to slice the turkey for that. You'd pick up a bone and it would come off, the meat would come off of it, and like it was very well cooked.
It was still okay to eat though.
But oh yes. But we, what did I say? We lived in Levittown until August of '71.
When we lived in Levittown, the way you got to work, you just went you got on the subway and went straight into Manhattan, right?
To get to work
From Levittown. Wait a minute.
from Levittown to go to work in New York City.
What I meant was Glen Oaks, is what I'm trying to say.
No, we were in Glen Oaks. You rode the bus and the subway.
Okay, but describe, you were in Levittown for approximately 20 years, give or take.
21 years.
Now, for the first few years, you commuted with a carpool, and then you started taking the Long Island Railroad.
That's right.
Describe each one of those, what you had to go through to get to work.
We had a carpool made up of 5 people, regular and 1 irregular. And we drove into the parking station at Willets Point, which is where the home office of the home plate for the sports teams in New York, the Jets and the Nets and such as that. And we would drive into this parking lot and then ride the subway in. And then at night we would ride the subway back out and go to the car. And as soon as all 5 of us showed up, well, we took off for home. And we did that, for 4 or 5 years.
How many miles did you drive before you got to the train?
Well, after the carpool broke up, everybody went their own way, and I had no choice. I had to go to the Long Island Railroad. And I remember the fare was $13 a week. I understand it's close to $100 now for the same thing.
What year did you switch to the Long Island
I
Railroad?
don't remember specifically what year it was, but I think it was in the late 50s, early 60s. I rode the Long Island for a long time. Another passenger on the train, and also a good friend of ours, was Mary Ann and Norman Parrish,
Yes.
whose daughter Sandy played with our kids, played with you all, and the like. They lived in Levittown too, just down the street from us. That's how we got acquainted. They lived down the street about a half a block. Also, the man on the family on the corner, Fred and Barbara White, they now live in Huntsville, Alabama. But we were neighbors there 40-odd years ago. And we came to Albuquerque in August of '71, and we were there until we left in 1992.
And moved to the Dallas area, to Garland.
And here we are. All right. Cut it off, huh?
Body aches, fever, coughing. So I made sure that he got new Tylenol.
Let's put I'm going to put the chair over here.
This chair?
Yeah,
Over where?
right behind me. Leaning up against the wall. Please, thank you.
Did you do that or did I do that?
I turned it on.
Yeah, this is a good place for it.
Sorry. I thought, hey, what happened to your accent? And aren't you supposed to be in Hawaii?
We're recording.
I can pick you up in the chair.
Well, this is going to be an interesting thing. I brought a bunch of pictures over with,
That'll be fun.
it'll
Can you
be,
sit in the chair and see
Yeah.
in the picture?
yeah. Let me show you. I got a bunch of pictures. I mean, they're just at random. Let's see. Where's that magnifying glass?
Right
Over
here.
Oh,
Oh, that's up in,
is that Max?
that's Max, when they were oiling. What did you put on that cabin?
Yeah, linseed oil.
Linseed oil. They painted it with linseed oil. Natural.
Oh, these look like Colorado. That's when I took that train trip.
Yeah.
I know one thing, of course I don't have any pictures, but when we were in Smithville, Dad was telling the story, these are all film on. Dad was telling the story of Jesse Jane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In, you were in, you know.
What town was he in?
Carney.
Kearney, Missouri.
This was, I remember you said something about he would visit his mother, he'd come in at night, stay at somebody's house, go through a tunnel to stay at somebody, to go see his mother or something.
So Jesse and Frank used to come down by the Missouri River west of town and hide in the daytime. And it started to get dark. They would come by Grandpa, my great-grandpa's place, leave their horses in the barn, take 2 of his horses and go on the other 6 miles down to the James boy's mother's house and enter the house through a tunnel from out in the woods. Visit with her and still come back in time to get the horses and ride back to Grandpa's house, leave his horses, pick up their horses, which are rested and fed and everything all night, and rode back to get to the riverbank to hide during the day.
I was going to ask you why he changed horses, but I think you answered it. He wanted fresh horses
That's right.
for the last...
His horses got to rest all night.
Oh, okay.
See, because they were there in the barn.
Uh-huh.
And they got to get to be fed and stayed inside and rested. And then when Jess and Frank came back, they would leave the Grandpa's 2 horses that he'd loaned them to take the place of theirs. And then they went on back west. If you look at your map, the west would take you right into the Missouri River and along the banks of it, and they'd hide in the daytime and then move at night.
But this wasn't just someone you knew, this was your great-grandfather.
He lived there, he was on the Ecton farm. We've been by it a few times.
So it was some...
And,
my great-great-grandfather.
Help Jesse James.
They were in favor of Jesse James.
Well, as you said one other time, back then, the thought of turning him in never occurred because they were neighbors, they were friends, and you never turned in friends or something.
Well, Jesse James's mother, I'm trying to think of her name, I can't now, but lived there on the farm in Kearney. And that's where the railroads came through and they took the right-of-way off of the James farm there to put in the railroad line up north towards Chicago and Des Moines and Minneapolis and all those places.
But the railroad was before or after they would come in to visit their mother?
It was before they came down and got the right-of-way and then built the track. Way back there in the 18-something or other.
Weren't they considered outlaws?
Jess and Frankie were, but the rest of the people know.
The mother, you mean?
Well, Mrs. Samuel was her name. That was her home.
That's fascinating. You think about,
The Rock Island Railroad went through and practically took away the land for the right-of-way, for the railroad right-of-way, because they didn't pay them hardly anything for their, for that, but that's one of the times the railroad track came down through that area. You said you saw the sign where it said Smithville one time when you were running the truck, but remember we talked about this one time when we went down with you. We all went down together. You turned off of the interstate there, but it was 6 miles to Smithville.
mm-hmm.
But it wasn't very far, but about a mile or less to where Mrs. James or Mrs. Samuel was her name. That was her farm. And they would, the James boys, Frank and Jesse, would ride their horses up to the woods out there, tie them up, go through the tunnel into the house. That way nobody's watching them outside. Never saw anybody enter or leave the house.
That's interesting. Wonder who dug the tunnel.
That was done a long time ago. Now this here is the north side of the cabin at Max,
Yes, up in Canada.
and that's Mac.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure it is.
I think it's Dale.
That's
Well,
one
it
of
could
them.
be, but anyhow, this is when we were putting some linseed
We
oil
used to-
all
we
over
used
the
to do this
cabin.
pump thing.
One summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yes.
right. You sprayed it on.
Looks a little bit too thin for now.
I want you to tell me about where you were born. You were born in a farmhouse in Smith,
Okay.
Clay County.
If you when you got off of the Interstate 35 on Route 96, it went across to Smithville. But the sign where you saw the sign says Smithville 6 miles. As you went down this road, this country road, you went by Ectonville, which was a corner of a country road. And your Uncle Dink, that you never knew, your Uncle Dink lived in Columbia the same time we did, Mother. And then he came back and worked there in the Smithville area, and he died there. But that on that road coming from Kearney over to Smithville, there was Ecton property on both sides of the road.
But was Ectonville an actual town or just
Ectonville was a 2-acre corner with a garage and a filling station and a country store and everything. But Uncle Dink ran when he came back from Columbia.
He ran the store?
He and Alma.
Take a wild guess on the year.
I would say 28,
1928.
27, 1927, 28. I'm guessing, yes, you're right, I'm guessing.
But is this near where the house where you were born?
Yes, this road went down there, had Ecton property on both sides of the road. We went down about a mile, and then if you made a right turn, you went a half a mile due north, and that was the house where I was born.
But it's
Yeah.
not there now, is it?
Oh, no, it burned many years ago. Grandma, your grandmother, wouldn't marry Daddy until she had her own house. Grandpa wanted the two families, Uncle Dink and his wife, and